First on BBC One.
Good evening and welcome to episode 39 of the History CV of Britain. I'm your host Paul, and this evening I'll be talking to Charles Allen Gunther about his lifelong study of Arthur, and I'm really excited to be talking to him this evening, so lots to look forward to. This week I published my tribute video to John Neal, and I'd like to thank everyone involved for their contributions. It came out really well in the end. I'm sure John would have been or would have enjoyed watching it. I should issue an apology for a little bit of swearing at the end, but it wouldn't really have been a John Neal video without a little bit of humour and swearing. So, but it's a family show. This, you know, there might be kids watching, so. Please keep it friendly, no swearing in the chat box, and just be nice, please. Brilliant. Okay, right. Talking of that video, I've just started to read this book, which is written by one of the contributors in the John Neal video, Adam Tetlow. It's called The Diagram, Harmonic Geometry. It's a lovely little book. Quite complex. It's going to take a lot of thinking about for me because I'm not naturally inclined when it comes to numbers and science, unfortunately. But I understand the importance of metrology when it comes to understanding ancient history and the ancients. So it's and we really want to, you know, take John's work forward now. That's very important. Adam Tetlow, of course, is doing that. And there are others, people like Matt Apocalypse and Melissa Campbell. So, yeah, it needs to be taken forward. Right, okay. Let's have a quick look. Actually, I've just remembered. Sorry, I'm a bit scatty today. This has literally just come through my door. Gildas on the Ruin of Britain. 18 pages. That's all you get. I'm looking forward to reading it, but it's very short, small book. I'm aware that he wrote others, but it's just quite frustrating that there's not very much written on our ancient history. But there's some Gildas, and I've read Nennius's Historia Brittonum now, and no doubt I'll be going back to that several times to refer to it. There's several different editions of these books. This Nennius one for definite, and it's quite. I don't understand why there's several editions. Surely a book should just say the same thing. That's just me anyway. Okay, right. Let's see who we've got in the chat box this evening. Quickly say a few hellos to people. Brian Duckfield is with us. Good evening, Brian. Hope you're well. Merlin's boy has been released from prison now after breaking an entry into Carey on the other weekend. So I hope you're enjoying your freedom, Merlin. Well, good, aka Richard Johnson, is with us. Good evening, Richard. Thank you for your appraisal. Yeah, it was a really enjoyable video, really enjoyable to compile. Do John Neal's family know of the video obituary, John of Tadley? Not sure about that, but I should have mentioned that Hugh Newman, who appeared in the video, the creator of Megalithomania, included the video in his Megalithomania newsletter this month. So people have been able to access the video through Megalithomania, which makes me very, very happy and proud. So yeah, but to answer your question, John, I'm not actually aware at the moment. Okay, and we've also, I missed one there, we've got Monica Escobar with us this evening. Hello Monica, how are you? Hope that we can speak to you soon on the show. So I think for the moment that's it. Okay, right, I don't want to miss anything. I wanted to say a few words, okay? I wanted to say a few words about what this show is about, the History CV of Britain, particularly as we're discussing well, quite a contentious subject this evening. So, first of all, I am neutral. I am completely neutral, mainly because I'm a novice, especially when it comes to Arthurian history. So, I know a little bit, but I don't know a lot. So for the time being, for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be neutral. And I want to investigate this deeply, and I want to get as many opinions on this history as possible. So I want people in the Wilson and Blackett, support group, whatever, to come on here and tell me why Wilson and Blackett were correct. I want to talk to people like Richard Johnson or Gulag, and I want to talk to people like a guest this evening, Charles Allen Gunther, who have a very different take on Arthurian history. And then, over the course of time, hopefully, I'll be able to make my mind up about, who might be right, who might be wrong, as will you, the viewer. So there we go. So I won't be coerced by anyone. I'm immune to coercion, so that's not going to happen. And I just want to know the truth. And I want to find out if Arthur has been deleted or obfuscated, if that's the right word, from our history and our history books. So there you go. That's what it's all about. This is an investigation into British history. Are we told the complete truth? Can we find things out ourselves? Can we add to the history? And there are also a few people out there that think that our history is being deleted or obfuscated for whatever reason. This is not a political show. So I've previously, thank you, Marshall. I've previously said that I want to preserve the history that we do have and try to restore it and try to find out if there's anything we can add to it. So, excuse me. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, brilliant. Oh, there is another thing actually. While I think of it, sorry, Charles, I won't keep you much longer. I suppose really I've come from, as I mentioned before, I've only been into Arthurian history for a few months. Prior to that, though, for a long time, I've been into ancient history, the pyramids, stone monuments, megaliths, etc. Now, if you're interested in that, then the official explanation for a lot of those things, how the pyramids were built, etc., and all that kind of jazz, the official explanation for those things are just, from my perspective, they're not believable. I think we're told nonsense. And I got into Arthur partly through Ralph Ellis, but also partly through Britain's Hidden History YouTube channel, which I loved, and I still do love. It's still, it's still going on with Peter Chesborough and Adam Griffiths. And they were very much, or Ross Broadstock, I should say, was very much in the Wilson and Blackett, kind of group, if you like. And I do like an underdog. I would love the romantic in me would love the idea that Wilson and Blackett, if they didn't solve it, they came up with a lot of new history that can be proved. I would love it if that was the case, but I'm not there yet, far from it. So anyway, hopefully that explains my position on all of this for what it's worth. I suppose it's my channel really, so I should share that with you. Okay, one last thing before I bring Charles on, I wanted to show you the newsletter that he edited and contributed to, and there was people like Jeffrey Ash writing in this Dragon newsletter, and it ran from just hide that message. It ran from 1982 through to, I think, 92 or 93. So it was going for 10 years. And I'm going to share it on screen now, just to give you a taster, really. The link, the online link, is underneath this video. I've just put it down there. So I'm just going to share screen for a moment. Let's hope it works. Let's find out quickly. So hopefully now you can see. I'm just going to double check. Yeah, you can see it. Brilliant. Okay. So Arthurian Societies and Journals. Here we are. This is the home page, and that's a picture of Charles. And these are the various copies of the Dragon newsletter that, as I say, ran for about 10 years. Lots of them. I think they were initially monthly and then became quarterly, if I remember rightly, but I'm sure Charles will correct me if I've got that wrong. So plenty of copies of Dragon there. And also, somewhere else on this website, there are copies of the Pendragon newsletter, which Charles has just told me started out in the 1950s and ran for about 50 years. So this is a absolutely incredible resource if anyone is interested in King Arthur and Arthurian history. And I'm just going to show you one other thing very quickly. Not that one, Paul. Hold on. Right. Oh, stop sharing screen. And then I'm going to show you one more thing very quickly. There we go. Hopefully you can see this. Right, I've been reading it, so I've clicked on one of those newsletters from the previous page that I showed you, and here's the front cover. That's the one I used in my post a couple of days ago on tonight's show. And I'll whisk through this one so you can see the sort of thing that it covers here. And I've just come across, there's Arthur and Cardiff. I just came across an article in this copy. Here we are. The name Arthur. Now have a look at this. Those who have read The Swords of the Britons, a military review, will recall that on military, strategic and tactical grounds prior to the Battle of Camlan, Arthur's headquarters is placed at Avebury, Wiltshire, spelt Avebury, in 1086, meaning Arthur'sburg or Arthur's fort. Now that's something that I've never come across before. Not that I've been, reading a lot of Arthur stuff up till now, but that I found very, very interesting because I'm a big lover of Avebury. I've been there several times. And the idea of Arthur's headquarters being at Avebury is very cool, to say the least. Anyway, all right, let's take that off screen now and bring on this evening's guest. So, stop screen sharing. There we go. I'm back on. Brilliant. Right, okay. So, here I'm going to bring on Charles now. So, without further ado, please give a very warm welcome to Charles Evans Gunther. Good evening, Charles.
Evening. That's my dog. Okay, yeah.
Great stuff. Okay. So I suppose really I should ask you how you first got into Arthurian history.
Well, I started as a child, of course. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, this kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading as a child The Heroes by Charles Kingsley, and it was all Greek. I was brought up in Wales and had nothing to read about Welsh history or British history. Anyway, I read Roger Lancelyn's Green's King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And that's basically Mallory, but it didn't do much for me. Of course, on television we had The Adventures of Sir Lancelot, 1956 to 1957. William Russell as Sir Lancelot. Merlin had a big pointy hat, this kind of thing. It was hilarious. Hilarious now, but as a child in 1950s, it was well, there was nothing else really, nothing much going for Arthurian. I didn't even know much about Arthur at all. I didn't even know I was Welsh. I live on the border.
Oh, okay.
We're just a few miles away from the English border, and in my town there used to be two Welsh chapels, but now I think there's one, and the only people going there are about 100 years old or something like that. I'm joking. So I didn't know much about the past.
Okay.
And what happened is that one day I went to the library in Flint. Flint is the town where I live. And I came across this book. I'm not going to bother showing you it, and it'll probably come up the wrong way anyway. This is the I don't know if you can see it, the Mabinogion. This is the Mabinogion.
Okay, yeah.
And it's the translation by an everyman copy. This is not the original one, of course. This is one I bought years and years later. I had no money as a child, so I spent all my time in the local library. And in that I read the story of Cilwch and Olwen. And that was my introduction to a different kind of Arthur that I found interesting. Having read that, I came across this one. And this is an ex-library. You can see it. No, you probably can't. It's probably back to front. Yep. It's From Caesar to Arthur by Geoffrey Ashe.
Oh, right. Okay. I know that one.
That was my introduction to an historical side of things. Yeah.
Okay. Can I just go back to the book you showed previously?
Yeah.
Because you said
the Mabinogion.
It might have been that one. You said that the Arthur in that book you found interesting.
Yes.
So what was interesting about that Arthur?
This was the Welsh Arthur.
Right. Okay.
Not called a king. He hasn't got any knights. He's got a load of warriors, and they're rough. They're rough people,
Yeah.
Pretty. And if you've read Cilwch and Olwen, it is pretty. It's not knights in shining armor sitting around the table. They're a rough lot. They're warriors. They're more like Native American warriors riding on horseback than chivalric characters. As I grew up, I went to college, etc. I became a teacher for a while, then got out of teaching because I enjoyed teaching, but I didn't enjoy trying to keep the kids in order. And so I just gave it up for a while, and then went on the dole, etc. And then I got a job as an indexer in the Clwyd County Library headquarters.
Okay.
Clwyd doesn't exist now, but it's now Flint and Denbighshire and a bit of and Wrexham. And while I was there, sitting in a corridor indexing journals, I had to go into what's called the stacks. Now, the stacks is where they keep all the books, and I don't mean a couple of books. I mean tens of thousands of books, and journals. And we were indexing journals. And one day I went in, and they said that the journals I had to read or had to index were in one particular part of the stacks. And I went to those stacks, and I found piles of Arthurian books. And what they were is that the guy who set up the library system in Flintshire, which was the original name of the area, and is now Flintshire again, a man called Edward Harries, he collected Arthurian books. He collected about 1,000 of them. And when he died, he donated them to the library. And the library just pushed them into a corner in the stacks, gathering dust, literally gathering dust. You could blow the dust off them. And that was my real introduction, to be able to look at Arthurian books for the first time. Some of them very old. Yeah. One of them 1820s, Joseph Ritson's originally book on King Arthur. Amazing.
Yeah.
And so I continued there for a while, and then I got another job as a graphic designer. I'm a bit of everything. I call myself was a jack of all trades, master of none, retired. And during that time, they were very good to me as a graphic designer, allowed me to do things that weren't quite normal. And this is one I actually did. This is the bilingual. I don't know if you can see it. It's Llywelyn ein Llywelyn. Llywelyn the last Prince of Wales, and it's a comic. You can see it's a comic.
Nice.
Comic with information at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see it.
Very nicely drawn.
And also, that was in 1979, 1981. And also, I worked on a project called, you won't be able to see it, People of Wales. This is book 2. Book 1 is terrible. You can't even see what's on the cover. It came out, it's pretty awful. But it's a history of Wales. And so it starts in, you can see it, Stone Age and etc. going on.
Wow.
And right up until modern times. And this was, I designed it and illustrated, England. I designed it and did all the illustrations and all the maps, which were very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And before I then finished, I was made redundant and became I tried to become a graphic designer from home. I had computers and everything. Straight to the heart at the time. Now they're rubbish, really. During that time, I did some work for a guy called Aled Lloyd Davis. He was expert on Cerdant, which is a special way of singing in Welsh. Very famous. And also, he was at one point president of the Nationalist Headford of Wales. And I worked on this with him. This is called Root and Branch, Links with the Past. And what we did is we looked at looked at everything about Wales from it's not very interesting to look at, but you've got to read it really.
Yeah.
From you outwards, starting with your name and going outwards into anything and everything. So that was while I was actually working for Clwyd, and before that, I came across this. You see it? Back to front.
Military
modelling.
Modelling, yeah.
And they did a series on Arthur, fact or fiction. Fact or fiction, it says at the bottom there. This is not good. Not good seeing you in sort of reverse images. Never mind. And so I wrote a letter to them, and they put an advert in there, even though I didn't really want to put an advert. And within a couple of days, I was getting letters from people saying, because they said I wanted to start a society. I hadn't said that really, but you know, serendipity, isn't it? Everything in my life is serendipity. And so I started the Dragon, and that kept me going for 10 years. And then we just ran out of ideas. And then I was editor of Pendragon for 3 issues. These are the 3 issues that I edited.
So, of course, these are the days prior to the internet, and there must have been some...
The internet had just started to come into existence in the late 1990s,
Yeah.
1990s.
But there must have been something very magical, I think, about compiling all those newsletters and sending them out to people.
Without a doubt, yeah. I, to be honest, it was a lot of what I did was illegal. I was using the county's. I hope nobody listening to this. Using the county's printing machines and things like that. So photocopying them, stapling them in work. Working till 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night and getting the last bus home. And I shouldn't be doing things like that, but it filled a gap. There was a gap.
Yeah.
Studying Arthurian subject, we find, and this is not just me, everybody's really into it. Waves, coming and going, sometimes nothing for years and years and years. And so people like Pendragon and Dragon filled the gap between publications of books. And so I am happy that survived. And then after that, on the third one, I was starting to find that life was difficult. At that point, personal computers, laptop, etc., were coming into existence, and I was not getting any work because the people I was working for were saying things like, "I've got a computer, I can do it," and so they didn't want a graphic designer anymore. And I got a phone call from a friend in Japan who said, I'd been there a couple of times and worked in a school. And he said, would you like to take over a school in Japan or go to a school in Japan to work there? So I went there for 90 days or something like that, and then came back. And then I got another phone call from the same guy. And he said, look, I'm stopping my school. I can't take it anymore. I can't do two jobs at the same, So he said, would you like to take over my school and run it? So I went over there and I worked over there for 10 years. I took very few books with me. They included Nennius and Gildas and the Geoffrey of Monmouth's book, and my notes that I'd made on a visit to Scotland, trying to study Arthur in Scotland. And I wrote those notes and then sent them to Pendragon, and they were published in Pendragon. So, and then I was there for 10 years. Before I went there, I was a reenactor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that picture you saw in Scott Lloyd's website, that I still use on Facebook, was taken in, I don't know, 1995, 1996, when we did a show, not a show, we did a television program. We spent a whole day doing a television program in which we had to fight battles, swords and shields, in dry ice. It was terrible. I had a cough for about 3 weeks afterwards. And one scene was about Llywelyn the Last, who got murdered by the English. And one person, we had to do this in a forest, and one person played Llywelyn, and I played Llywelyn's secretary. And the idea was we were going to get killed, and one of our group was going to spear me. But luckily, the spear was not pointy. It had like a little, I don't know, round bit on the end.
Glad to hear it.
But there was take after take after take. I woke up the next morning with the biggest red bloom. I'd been stabbed about 10 times. It never appeared in the movie. They never used it. They never completely wasted the whole day. The whole battle scene was taken out. It was terrible. And anyway, when I came back from Japan after 10 years, there was a big problem in Japan. It's known as the Lehman crash. Businesses went out just like that, crashing all of them. School teaching English went out of business, leaving their students who were coming from America, Australia, Britain, no jobs, stuck in Japan. I was lucky I got out before the crash took place, because my colleague, my friend in Japan, he was starting to go blind in one eye. And so it was getting difficult for him. His uncle had gone completely blind, and it was genetic. So I came home and I rejoined the reenactment group and retired. And originally I was an archer, and we doubled up. I was also a doctor, a medic for a group of Welsh war band who were killing the English, And when I came back, my job had been taken, so I had to reinvent myself. So I reinvented myself as a scribe. So I've been studying not just Welsh, but French and Latin manuscripts since 1997.
Okay. So how many...
That's how I started.
That's absolutely fascinating. So how many books on Arthur would you estimate that you've read?
Oh, right, okay. Not counting the ones I've got, which amount to about 300. Let's say not just Arthur, but let's say Arthur and the period. Yeah, the what people used to call the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
I prefer to call it the early Middle Ages or post-Roman period. I've got about 417. I don't know, maybe including novels, but a good few of them are behind me.
Nice.
Not including where my finger's pointing. A collection of Rupert Bear annuals from 1947 to 1980 something.
Wow, amazing.
And Asterix to go down there.
Brilliant. Okay.
Right.
Just quickly for the viewers, if you've got any questions for Charles, please put them in capital letters so that I can see them clearly in the chat box. I think given everything you've told me so far, Charles, I think you're very well qualified to answer this question. So
Okay.
Before we launch into Arthur, how can we best understand the past? Is it just a case of reading as many history books as you can get your hands on, or is there more to it than that?
I would go to sources rather than history books. There's a saying. It's not a saying. It's actually the first line of a book by Leslie Pauls Hartley, 1953. The Go-Between. The past is a foreign country. They do things different there, and that's the fact. What we're looking at in the past is what they want us to see. Mm-hmm. If you read the Historia Britonum, if you read Gildas, that's what they want you to see. That's what they don't necessarily say they believed in it. But as the years went by, people are writing histories. And so you've got to go to the source of those. The earlier, the better. Historia Britonum, which you were showing there, there is not one version of it. Yeah, that's only one.
Yeah.
The main version. First, I'll show you two. Actually, this is the one you should have because it's bilingual. It's bilingual.
Is that the Chiro on the front?
It's a Cairo.
Cairo, yeah.
It's Cairo. This is by John Morris. This is the John Morris collection, the Arthurian period sources, volume 8. This is my original. And what I'm going to open it. Are you ready?
Yep.
It's all over the floor now. I actually used it to look at the original of the Historia Britonum, Harleian manuscript. I'm just going to bend down for a second.
Yeah, no worries.
I should have done that up here, really, shouldn't I? That went to Japan with me for 10 years. It was stuck in Japan, and it just started to fall to bits. It was a paperback. I now have a hardback. This is a hardback. This is going to last. This is going to last till I die, I think, and beyond. I hope. There are not one version of it. This here is a compilation of 2, or maybe 3 versions of it. The earliest was found in Chartres in France, but it's an abbreviated version, and it doesn't have Arthur in it anyway. The most common one is the Harleian manuscript, 3589.
Yep.
I might get that. I might have that wrong. 3859. 3859. That's the basic one, and you can see it. No, you can't see it, unfortunately. It used to be on the British Library website, and then seemingly, and I don't know the exact details, it was hacked. and their manuscripts are now no longer visible. Maybe some of them are, but certainly the Harleian one is not.
Oh dear.
But I actually went through it, on the screen with my book, taking notes, showing how it was done. I can show you a picture of it, but it won't show up very well. This is the actually. That's the page. Can you see that?
Yeah, pretty well. Yeah.
That's the page that's of interest to Arthurian people, Arthurian students. This was actually written possibly around 1100. It's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
Mm.
And the original would seem to have been written about 830, give or take, in North Wales somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Guy, who's written quite a bit on it, I think he's a professor in Swansea. I'm not quite sure. I've never met him, but I've spoken to him on the internet, not the internet, the messenger and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think he is actually on Facebook, and he believes it was actually written in a monastery in Abergele, which is
Okay.
in, I don't know, Abergele? No.
No, unfortunately not. No.
It's what's called a class. A class is a Celtic monastery, often built in a circle. There's a circle around them, and the church would be in it, and there would be the houses for the monks to live in. And it's believed it was written there, but it was written for the king. Now, king is difficult because this is Wales. Even though we use the word brenin for a king, that means just a high person. And when you talk about kings in Wales, it's not quite the same as, sort of King Richard II or King Richard I. It's different. But anyway, it was written for a guy. Now, I'm going to use more modern Welsh rather than the original. But I'll mention the original. He was Mermin, and he's now better known as Mervyn Vrich. And it was written for him. And this is the page itself. And you can see it's an interesting page because the scribe made some mistakes. And he also left words out, not words, the letters out. It begins in Ilio Tempora Saxonis, but he left the I out. His idea was that he'd pass it on to somebody else who had a red ink and put the red ink on it, and he never did. If you ever see it, if you ever get a chance to see it, and I think you can actually go to the British Library and get it out and open it, you'll see that up to a certain page, they put the actual first letter of the paragraph in colour. But by the time you got to page 187, somebody had forgotten to actually put those. So it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting looking at it, because at one point he scratched out something, and at another point he scratched out something else where the letter, he couldn't get his wording in. But that's only one. There were others. The Vatican had one. Oh, it still had one, and it was written in England. This was probably also written in Canterbury. It was come from Wales to Canterbury. You must remember that in those days, Canterbury was the religious centre of Britain, and they controlled all the different parts of Britain, who were parts of the Roman Catholic Church in that period. So this would have come from possibly from St. David's in Dyfed or Pembrokeshire. Yeah, it's a copy. It's come down from North Wales, and somebody's copied it in South Wales, Southwest Wales, and then given a copy to somebody in Canterbury, who's then copied it. It then disappeared out of Britain, went to Italy, and eventually was brought back and came to the British Library. Same with many of these interesting manuscripts have moved around all over the place. A Gododin was possibly written in North Wales and ended up, and really kills me, Cardiff Library. I used to go to Cardiff Library when I was studying art in Newport Arts College. And I used to go there. I had no idea that the Gododin was actually on a shelf in Cardiff Library. I could have got it out and looked at it. But I wasn't. I was studying Japanese art at the time and didn't actually know. And now, a Gododin, you can see it on the National Library of Wales website. Cardiff passed it on to the National Library.
Do you think that people are deliberately steered away from this Dark Age or early Middle Age history?
No,
you don't.
Not whatsoever. No, I've got so much on it, and also journals. I mean, there have been journals looking at this subject now since when? I don't know, 1800s, early 1800s, maybe even late 1700, the end of the 1700s. In Wales, there was a sudden growth in wanting to know about the past, and so the journals started to appear. Some of them are still going today. Cymrodorian Society, this kind of thing, as far as I know. But then they were just anybody could write in it. Literally anybody. And some of them were interesting, some of them were not. And there was no university. The University in Oxford, University of Cambridge, these kind of things, they existed, but Wales had nothing at all. And it wasn't until the 1890s that we had one university, the University in Aberystwyth. Now there's university all over. It's known as the University of Wales somewhere. And the collection I mentioned, Edward Harry's collection, used to be kept in Mould Library Headquarters. That's my brother going past. Mould Library Headquarters for years, and I had access to it. And then the county ran out of money. So it was all taken to Bangor University, which is quite a distance from here. So you can there's a lot around. And even from the 19th century, there were lots of people studying the subject. Some of them were amateurs, like, for instance, this person went to Oxford University. Arthur Wade Evans produced some really interesting books, and a good copy, an old copy, 1950s or 1960s, of the Historia Brittonum, and also the genealogies that went with it, which is not included in this, and also the Annales Cambriae, which is included in this and was included in his book, and he lays it out. As the annales were actually laid out, which was often not reproduced in the way they were laid out.
Incredible. Okay, thank you, Charles. So
that's how they were laid out.
Lovely.
That's the Annales Cambriae.
Beautiful. Okay. So are books like the Historia Brittonum and the Annales Cambriae, are they valid sources of history, would you say?
Now you're asking a difficult question. Now, do you want my opinion, or do you want the consensus?
No, I want your opinion, Charles.
Okay, you want my opinion.
Yeah.
I believe that the Historia Brittonum was produced for a particular reason.
Okay.
In the early 9th century, well, even earlier, Wales is under a threat. Wales wasn't one country; it was a number of different kingdoms. Yeah, not in the same way we look at kingdoms today. Tribal areas where they were ruled by an aristocracy, and a large free people. The people basically free. Underneath there were slaves and things like that. But everybody was basically in a situation where if there was a war, you all fought. one minute you're digging the field, next minute you've got a sword and a spear in your hand, and off you go to war. And that was probably against some other Welsh people. You can call them Welsh because in the 8th century, the Mercia actually built this famous Offa's Dyke, which is where Wales starts to appear. They built a dike from one part, from North Wales to South Wales, basically, and they say the Welsh are on that side. And so that's how we get Wales. Wales sort of builds up from that area for about, I don't know the exact date, 760s, something like that. At that point,
so is Wales a Saxon word?
Wales is an English word. Yes, it's an English word. There are big problems with this because I don't think they meant what a lot of people think they meant. Wailet means a person who does not speak our language but speaks Latin.
Really? Wow.
So
okay.
when the Germanic people landed in Britain, whenever it was, and the stories are in here maybe, but Bede is telling you the main story. When they landed, they came across people on the eastern side of Britain who were primary Latin speakers, and so they said, "Oh, they're Romans," so they called them the Wailas. And they'd also call in other people in Europe the same thing. Anybody who spoke Latin was a Welshman, basically. Okay. And so when they came to Britain, they first encountered Latin speakers. And so this is we're not foreigners. We weren't really foreigners. We're just people who were Romans, basically. They thought we were Romans. And then eventually, of course, they learned something different, and they started calling us even British. They even call us British. Okay. We're the only Britons left. I'm not really. Yes. I'm a hybrid. I'm a hybrid, a bit of everything. My grandmother came from Staffordshire. My great grandfather was born in Switzerland.
Yeah. So, I read somewhere, Charles, the other day that native Britons to this day still retain about 70% of their ancient British DNA, which I was quite surprised about.
If you go to some parts of Wales, you will find that the DNA is very high. And also Scotland. If you go to Scotland, you're finding a similar thing. We're talking not about Welsh people, we're talking about ancient British people. And they survived. It's still coming, and there's still a lot of work to do on DNA. As you move west, the DNA increases. Less and less Germanic. If you go to Ireland, next to nothing. If you go to northern Scotland, you're getting Viking and ancient Britons. I'd call them Picts if you want, but they were the same DNA. It's difficult, and there's still a long way to go. There's still a long way to go. But yes, there are some parts of Wales where zero Germanic DNA, zero.
Okay.
But they also found some interesting parts of Wales where there's Spanish DNA, and they believe it's come from Roman soldiers. Would you believe?
Yeah. Okay, let's jump on to Arthur now, Charles. So,
okay, yeah. Well,
can early Welsh poetry tell us anything about the historical Arthur? And before you answer that, I'm going to practice. Yeah, thanks. I'm going to practice some of my Welsh now for everyone watching. So sit back and learn, everyone. So I'm thinking about the poems Previ Anoven.
Yep.
And Geraint Fair Abin, and Godovin, and Cad Gadai, and Cad Caernon. I think that's hopeless.
Cad Caernon. Yeah. What I would advise, if anybody's interested, is this little book. I think you can see it. It's called The Celtic Sources for Arthurian Legend. And it has not only the Welsh ones, it has Irish ones as well. John Jon B. Coy, COE, and Simon Young. It's produced by Llanach Publishers. It's a basic thing. It gives you it's bilingual, and it gives you the basic poetry plus other things, including part of Kilochan part of Geoffrey Monmouth's, the Welsh version of Geoffrey Monmouth. Right, the oldest one, maybe in the Black Book of Carmarthen, but it's not quite sure. This is Geraint, and this is Pagir, yeah? I don't think you mentioned Pagir Porther.
That's the one that I was too
you weren't going
to pronounce, yeah.
Pagir. I'm pronouncing it in modern Welsh. It might have been pronounced different back in the 12th century. Arthur and his warriors go to a gate, and the gatekeeper, the Porthor, asks, "Who are you?" And then but this is folklore. This is not history. It even includes some characters from the Mabinogion. Manawydan is actually mentioned in. Manawydan wouldn't have been in one of Arthur's warriors, but he's there, And the Book of Taliesin, which you mentioned, a couple of them, Preiddianwn and Urin, again is folklore. It's not history. The only one that might be history, and it's dubious, is a Gododin. And all it doesn't say much, and it doesn't, even if it's history, it doesn't tell you much. I'll just see if I can find where it is. Yeah. I'm looking this up, and it's really a waste of time because it's in my head anyway. But I'll just find it. Right, here it is. And all it says about Arthur is Caer Cynni bai ef Arthur. He wasn't an Arthur. It's a stanza about a guy called Gwawddur. And it says he fed crows on the wall, on the ramparts that they were fighting someone, whoever they were fighting. And he was such a great warrior that he fed the birds. The carrion crow was eating people, dead people, and the blood was everywhere. Even though he was a great warrior, and what does it say? Killed people by the hundred. He was not Arthur.
Okay. What
does that mean? Basically, it's just saying that this man was a great warrior, but he wasn't as good as Arthur. Possibly that's what it means. But it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you anything at all. And the problem with the Gododin is that there is only one surviving copy. And it's now in the National Library of Wales. And it's two slightly different versions. One of them doesn't mention Arthur. Two different hands, two different scribes writing. And what it was about, who knows? And they don't even know when it took place. The guess is 600, but they don't know who was fighting there. Maybe it was fighting the Angles in the north. But a more recent version of it is by John T. Koch, an American writer, historian, etc., linguist. And he leaves you with, you come out the end of the book, you're not sure what the heck happened in that. And it doesn't appear anywhere. It's in the battle that was fought. The battle was called Catraeth. And it's not mentioned anywhere. It's not mentioned anywhere at all. It's not in the Annales Cambria. The Saxon chronicles don't mention it. Nobody mentions it. But it appears in a manuscript which travelled around Wales and ended up in Cardiff, and then went to the National Library of Wales. And it's written in medieval Welsh, but there are phrases in it that seem to be a lot older. But this may be a trick, because some of the other poems you mentioned in the book of Taliesin seem to be old, but maybe they're not as old as you think they are, because the bard who's writing it is following a system. Welsh poetry is very, very complicated, and I mean complicated. It's not like modern, it's not like Wordsworth or something like that. It's got a pattern, a special pattern, and the words must, like, going from one. I can't even explain it to you; it would take too long. They rhyme within lines, rhymes from line to line, and within the same line. And unfortunately, like most manuscripts, you've got to find out where the lines are, because they're just masses of text. Another thing could well be old, as the poetry in the book of Taliesin could be old, but being sure about it is very, very difficult. And most of the book of Taliesin, the ones that people think are older poetry, don't mention Arthur.
Okay.
The Preddianwn is a trip to the other world on a ship, and only 7 come back, this kind of thing, which sounds very much like something around the Mabinogion. What it is, and what I won't get it out, it's over there. Margaret Haycock did an excellent breakdown and looked at the words, word for word, things like that, of the book of Taliesin, but not all of it, unfortunately. Preddianwn, she goes through, and also the other poems that are in the book of Taliesin, which mentioned Arthur, are also folklore. They're not history, and they're very complicated. And remember, these people didn't have books in front of them to read this poetry. It was in their heads. It's like Cilwch Olwen is an amazing story. There are 200 names the storyteller's got to remember. There are 40 quests that he's got to talk about, and they don't complete them. This is a kind of, what you say, it's difficult to explain, but they're showing their ability. These poems, like Preddianwn, like Pagir as well, they're showing their ability, their knowledge. And their knowledge may not be about history. It may be using older stuff, like the Mabinogi. The Mabinogi stories were believed to be even older than any Arthurian stuff. And they're taking bits out of them and putting them into poetry and saying, look, I am a very, very clever person. I know all this. I know so much. And sometimes they actually say that to you. They say that to the people. I'm a very, very clever person. I know everything. I'm Taliesin who knows everything because he drank from the cauldron that showed him the ool of existence in a matter of seconds, the universe in a matter of seconds. They are showing how good I am, And so people say, oh my God, he knows all this stuff. This is the incredible poet, And the storytellers would be doing the same. The people would be sitting around the fire listening to this guy speaking for, I don't know, hours and hours, maybe days, telling these stories, not making mistakes. There's a famous. I've not found evidence in Wales, but there's a famous storyteller in Ireland, and this was in the 1920s and 1930s. And he told a story, and the guy who transcribed it, because he couldn't read or write, didn't have any books to read these stories from. They're all in his head. And the guy who was listening to him and transcribing it, then went back to, say, the University of Dublin and found a manuscript from the Middle Ages, word for word almost. This guy was telling the story. He he remembered, and it had been passed down from generation to generation of storyteller. This is incredible. This is, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have telly, didn't have anything like this. They could do things like that.
Yeah, amazing.
The past is different. They do things different in the past. We don't do that now. And I remember there is one storyteller who lives in Wales, Eric Madden. And I remember I introduced him to a group in Chester to give a lecture on storytelling. And coming back, we went from Chester, and he dropped me off in my town because he lived in Carnarvon area. And on the way there, he quoted from Killick and Olwyn word for word. It's incredible. So there are storytellers, even today, who have got this ability to remember incredible amounts of material. I can't do it. That's why I've got all these damn books.
Yeah, I would struggle. Millie Jackdaw's very good. If you ever come across Millie Jackdaw, she's a great storyteller living in Wales. Okay. Something you said earlier, actually, about the underworld reminded me of something I read recently on Arthur when he was supposedly killed at Camlan. He went to the underworld. But the story and the way it read reminded me of the legend of Bran the Blessed when he went to the underworld. It almost sounded like somebody had placed that story or placed Arthur into that story. Have you come across that at all?
No, I haven't got that. Bran the Blessed go into the underworld. I don't know that one. I know Bran. Vendigeidfran it's called in Welsh.
Yes.
Going to the underworld. He had his head cut off in Ireland and brought back, and he lived in a building for X number of years, an incredible length of time. And he was talking when he was, decapitated.
Yeah, for many months after he died, he was still talking. Yeah.
Maybe it was probably years actually.
Yeah.
And then he said that I'm okay as long as you don't open that door over there. And somebody opened the door and he died. That might have been the another world. I don't know, but it wasn't the world of Prydianon.
Okay.
And Prydianon may well be related to the Historia Britonum.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because there is a section in the Historia Britonum where people come to an island, and the people on the island are very strange. And they basically tell them to go away. And it has very similar thing, and rotating, and this kind of thing.
Okay.
It's complicated.
What does the name Arthur mean? Does it just mean bear, or is there more to it than that?
You're asking a very difficult question. Very, very difficult.
I'm good at that. Sorry.
Yeah, and even if you read my article in Dragon, it's outdated. You must remember there are things in there that are now you can forget about. It's like Arthur Young. Arthur Young was a real character. He's dead, of course, now. He was a pilot. He flew over the Himalayas. I got his book on it. He wrote 1.5 books on Arthur. They're up there somewhere. He sent them to me. He was very kind. I bought the book, and I communicated with him till and then his communication just stopped, and he died of old age. His son sent me his funeral card and things like that. Incredible character, but some weird ideas. And he used Geoffrey of Monmouth, basically. The Avebury thing, I think he was playing. You'll have to read that again carefully, I think. It's nothing, I don't think, he had a thing about Atherstone, which is in, I don't know, Staffordshire, maybe, I don't know, maybe a bit further west, Derbyshire, I'm not quite sure. Near to the Battle of Bosworth Field, because the story is that Henry Tudor stopped off at Atherstone. But this is a play on words. Yeah, Atherstone. It's nothing to do with Arthur at all. But it's English people. I'm sorry, you are English, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, have a habit of dropping their R's. Yeah? So you never pronounce the last R in a word. You don't say whether. Yeah, you don't. Where it becomes an A almost, doesn't it, at the end? And so Arthur Young was playing with that idea, and he was saying that the people lived in the area. It might have been called Arthur's Town or Arthur's Stone, but they dropped the R. That's a big problem, and a linguistic expert would probably pull that to bits. But this was his book, and he was kind enough to send me another book after reading an article by myself, and he became interested in looking at the Midlands, and he did some stuff on that. But it's basically following his own ideas, which would never got any support really. The name Arthur is difficult. It could be from Arth, could be Arth meaning bear.
Yeah.
But the problem is that its first appearance, we believe, is in the Annales Cambriae, or maybe the Historia Bretonum. It's your choice. You can make your own choice about that. It's already Arthur, but other names that are very similar to using the Arth are not. For example, Arthen is from Art-gen, a son of bear, Art-gen. The G disappears in later Welsh. It mutates. You can't work out the second element if you're using Arthur in Arthur. Arthur, it's a U. Now, people have said it could be Gur, as a gear, as in Pagir, the man, bear man. But there should be somewhere where it would say Art Gur or Art Gear, but it's not found anywhere. So Arthur existed from the first appearance as Arthur. Why? And why is it paralleling other similar names which are different? Now, there are names in Welsh which are related to the word bear, and they can be traced back to the 10th century. But
Okay.
his name is already Arthur, so it's possible. And the consensus these days is that it's from Arthurius.
Right.
It's a Latin name.
Latin,
But don't give up yet, because it comes from a part of Italy that was very near Celtic area, and it's believed, at least Stefan Zimmer, a German scholar, believes that Arthurius comes from a Celtic name, Arthurix, bear king. So
Okay.
it could from bear king to Arthurius to Arthur. Maybe. This is a consensus now.
Yeah. Okay.
Not necessarily the Celtic part. Consensus is Arthurius became Arthur, and linguistically it works, and it's been known for a long time. It's not a recent idea. It goes back, about 100 years, and scholars have been saying it could be Arthurius. Arthur could come from Arthurius, and it may go back even a little bit further, back into the 19th century.
Okay.
So it could be.
Brilliant.
A bear, but if it's a bear, the second element of that name is not understood.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Charles. Okay. Before I ask you my last question, and I will take questions from people in the chat box. I've got one from Daniela Holland, which I'll mention. Please put them in capitals. I'd love to get you back on, because it's become quite apparent during this discussion, Charles, that we're really only skimming the surface of so many things, and there's so much to discuss on this. So I'd love to get you back on at some point.
It is a nice iceberg. We're only touching the top of the iceberg.
Pretty much, yeah. So my last question for this evening is, why do some people say that Arthurius was Arthur, and what do you think about Wilson and Blackett?
That's two questions.
Well,
Okay. First one. Why do you think? What would you say? What would you say that why Arthur is Arthur? What evidence would you imagine that is there?
The first four letters are the same.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
ARTH.
No,
Isn't
they're
it?
ATH.
Maybe I spelt it wrong. Whoops. Okay.
No, Arthruis. It's possibly and very possibly a genuine Welsh name, but it doesn't mean bear, and it may not have anything to do with Arturius. This is very difficult. It's very possible that the first part of that element of Arthurius's name is very similar to the word for teacher or master, yeah? And gwys, which the G drops and disappears. The earliest version of Arthurius's name is found in the Liber Landavensis, the Book of Llandaff, and it's written ATHRUIS. But in later Welsh, the U and the I become W and I, WY. So the pronunciation is very similar. And it could mean a master of knowledge. This is not necessary fact. This is a possibility. Yeah? That Arthurius is a genuine name. And there were a couple of them. There was a great grandson of Arthurius ap Meirug. There is a genealogy. There's a genealogy which can be traced, and you can use the Book of Llandaff. And to learn about Arthurius ap Meirug, you must read the Book of Llandaff, because that is the only evidence for him, apart from some genealogies. The Hallian genealogies write his name as Atroys, and they don't even say he's the son of Meirug. They say the son of Turig or Tuberic. Yeah, there's a mistake there possibly, because the Book of Llandaff definitely says that Arthurius was the son of Meirug, who was the son of Tudoric. So it's a bit difficult. It's a little bit difficult. If you want to know about Arthurius ap Meirug, the Book of Llandaff must be read, and he only appears in it a couple of times. I actually got him here. He appears first in a charter, and he's just mentioned as being the son of Meirug. That's all, nothing else. He's just one of the witnesses. Meirug and two sons. The sons were, got it written down somewhere. I can remember it anyway. It seems that Meirug had at least two sons. He probably had loads of sons, and he probably had daughters, but daughters were not important. They were very male-dominated society. I think Idnerth was the other son, but there was another one called Friog, and Arthurius' son Morgan murdered his own uncle. So Friog was murdered by Morgan. The strange thing is that there are only three charters. There's that one which mentions him as a son. I think there are maybe another charter as well, but the main charter is the main charter which mentions Arthurius. He's not even in the charter. It says here, on the laity, King Meirug on behalf of his son Arthurius. So Arthurius isn't there. Why isn't he there? No idea. The other one, I got the other one, is number 8, and it's a place called Llancinmarch, or Llancinmarch, and it's not in Wales. It's in, well, it might have been Wales in those days, if you want to call it Wales. It was in Herefordshire, in a place called Erging or Erking. A lot of the things in Llandaff, in the Book of Llandaff, have been swiped from somewhere else. The Book of Llandaff was organised by a guy called Bishop Urban. He wasn't Welsh. He was from Herefordshire, and he was made Bishop of Llandaff didn't exist. He was made Bishop of South Glamorgan Glamorgan, by the Archbishop of Canterbury. And he was a rival to another Bishop of St. David's, a guy called Bernard, who they basically hated each other, and they wanted more land. They wanted to take over, And both of them traveled to Rome to try and get more land. I think Urban died in Rome after being there 5 or 6 times, traveling all across Europe. So whether these things mean anything, you've got to be very careful, because the bishop is trying to push an idea. This is validity. The lack of validity, what it is that they are propaganda, basically. It's a kind of propaganda. And it says the only one that mentions got a witness of KingArthur. He doesn't do much. He gives the land to a bishop called Comereg. And during the giving of this, he walks around the area with the Bible on his back. That's it. That's it. That's Arthurius. That's all he does in the Book of Llandaff. That's the only. And some people are not even sure it's the same guy, because he's called King of Gwent, but in the other one he's called King of Glywysig. So I disagree with the late Peter Bartram. I think it's the same guy, because it actually mentions in that charter, it says to give prayers for the soul of his father. Not that his father was dead. He wasn't dead at the time, because it's believed that Arthurius didn't survive his father. His father, Meirig, was king of a larger area and was taking on other areas if he could. He was heading north and taking over country. This wasn't President Trump. These were warriors. They were taking the land from other people and killing other Welsh people. And he was moving north. So it's possible that Arthurius was a sub-king to his father and died before his father, because the next king is Morgan, very quickly in the Charters. And Morgan survived a lot longer than his father.
Okay.
And killed his uncle. And then the line goes down for many, many generations until things got bad. And then somebody else took over. And I can't remember all the details of this. It's in there, but bringing it up would be difficult. Then the Normans came and conquered most of South Wales. And Flintshire, where I live as well. They just came in and took it. And they were the ones who promoted Arthur, not the Welsh. The Normans promoted Arthur. Right from the beginning. Yeah. Geoffrey of Monmouth is more propaganda. It's more propaganda.
So Geoffrey of Monmouth is Norman propaganda. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And you can see it by reading it.
And why were the Normans so interested in Arthur?
It was kind of romantic for them. They were people who were into that. And it was only the aristocracy, remember? Only the aristocracy. The population of Britain were English-speaking English. They'd killed all the English-speaking aristocracy. They'd murdered them. They'd massacred them at Hastings. They then killed them, or they ran away. They went to live in different countries. Hardly any of the male population of the Anglo-Saxon aristocracy survived. Female, yeah, but not the male. Some went to live in Scotland. They are the ones who are causing the problem. It's the Normans.
The Normans, okay.
Yeah,
very interesting. Would you
could take a lot longer to actually explain. There's
sure.
a lot of information there.
Okay, sure. Shall we end up just briefly touching on Wilson and Blackett?
All right. Wilson and Blackett. So this is Alan Wilson and two brothers, Tony Thomas Blackett and his brother, Michael Scott Blackett. What they were up to, I'm not quite sure, but I got letters from them, and they originally they were seen to be, all their interest was at when the letters I've got and the newspaper articles was to build a theme park in South Wales, plus tours of South Wales. This seemingly fell through, and my impression is, from their letters, the letters became more and more bitter, and they became very insulting. I can't use the language they used in their letters. Nothing mixed. They insulted me, but I could take it. They insulted important people, and that's been the problem right from the very beginning. They rubbed people up the wrong way, and so people like Lord Parry, who at that time was in charge of the Welsh Tourist Board. I got a copy of a letter to him. Oh my God! You don't write letters to people like that. If you're a business, and they claimed they were businessmen. If you're a businessman, you want to be polite, but this book is just this letter from these three people. That includes Michael Blackett as well. And in some of the photographs, you'll see the three of them together. Michael Blackett died in 2017, I think. Not sure about that. I might have something somewhere. Probably not. Yeah, but not 2017. He was. No, that's his dad. Michael Blackett died in 2016. He was 58 years old. He died in Newcastle. As did Tony Blackett. Alan Wilson also died in Newcastle. My letters come from 3 T Droy in Cardiff, Penalang, Cardiff. And as far as I can work out, that house was Alan Wilson inherited it from his father, a guy called Luke Wilson. And he died in 1977. After that, as far as I know, the house belonged to Alan Wilson. And the two characters, the two Blackett brothers, went to live with him. And from what I know, and from what I've been told by people who knew Wilson and Blackett back in the 80s, the Blacketts were feeding Alan Wilson conspiracy theories, making him feel bad. I still, to this very day, feel sorry for Alan Wilson. He believed what he was being told. Now, his writings, that's a different, let's forget about that part of it, the personal thing. I'd not have to go into much more detail about that. And there is evidence of things that are not quite right. The books are based, Arthurian Ep39 is based basically on a mistake, printed error in 1673. When somebody got a hold of the Book of Llandaff and transcribed it and then got it printed, they spelt the name wrong. If you look, the Book of Llandaff is now in the National Library of Wales. You can look at the actual page and see that the name is Arthruis, not Arthruis. An Englishman called Thomas Cart then decided that Arthruis, or Arthruis as he was reading it, was really Arthur. It begins in England. Not in Wales. And then disappears for a while, and then it reappears in the when Cart was writing in 1744, I think, and then it was picked up by some characters in London who wrote one of them is a biography, a biography of famous Welsh people, in which he used Thomas Cart and said that Arthurius might well be Arthur. So it goes back to the actual problem goes back to 1673, nothing before, nothing at all. Nobody said Arthur was Arthurius before that. It starts in 1673, and then with Thomas Cart, an Englishman, not a Welshman. Owen Pugh, who produced a marvelous collection called the Arthurian Archaeology, but never translated. It was all just they copied the Welsh manuscripts. He continued that mistake made by Thomas Cart. Arthurius ap Meirug is Arthurius ap Meirug, and he's probably a very interesting character if he wasn't messed up. And also, the area of Southeast Wales is very interesting, especially the religious part. Something very, very interesting was going on in Southeast Wales. Very interesting.
Are you referring to the King Caractacus and the Silurians?
No. Forget about that. Religious, I said. Religious, not military. We're talking about after the Romans left, if they really left. But after the authority fell apart, a part of South Wales became almost a kind of magnet for religious people. Probably first of all, Gwent itself, which is now the town of Gwent. There was something there. Caerleon, forget about it. The Romans left it quite early on, and it fell into ruin. All there was the bits and pieces of the legionary fortress, which were still standing because nobody bothered to build over them. They were still standing there in the Middle Ages. But in places like Llantwit Major, a lovely name, isn't it? Llantwit Major. It was used on a television series. It was hilarious. Saint Twit. His name wasn't because Llaneltid Fawr. Iltid was a saint, and he was a very important teacher. And it's possible, and more than possible, that part of Southeast Wales, was a magnet for all these people who were interested in the Christian religion, and they went there. They went there to learn. And possibly even Gildas went there to learn, and they were teaching the Roman system of education right into the Middle Ages, and it was surviving. Like certain things in Wales survived from the Roman period. Medics, when in the Middle Ages, when Welshmen were recruited by the English to go and fight in France, they wouldn't go without a medic. At the Battle of Crecy, there were thousands of Englishmen dying on the field, because they didn't have any medics. But the Welsh group, they had a medic to look after them. This was passed on from the Romans. And of course, the word medic is motherg in Welsh. The Latin word is continued. And the Welsh laws include a medic as being part of the taili, which was the war band of a king or a ruler. It's a very interesting thing, what was going on in Southeast Wales. But it's being pushed aside by theories which may be losing the real history.
We've covered the early Christian church in Britain on the History CV a few times, and it's something that's fascinated me. For example, Joseph of Arimathea coming to Britain as a tin merchant.
No.
Cardinal
Forget.
Cardinal Baronius, who was the curate of the Vatican, said this, and he had access to obviously many books at the Vatican Library that we don't have access to. So I'm open-minded about that, but there is no definitive proof that it happened. We do know that Joseph of Arimathea was a wealthy man because he was in the Sanhedrin, I think it's called the
Sanhedrin, yeah, Sanhedrin.
That's the one. So we know he was wealthy, but there, as I say, there is no definitive thing we can point to.
He must have been very old as well. He survived the legendary Jesus. You know, he survived them by how many years?
Yeah, some people say he was a brother. Some people say he was an uncle. Some people say that he oversaw the Virgin Mary's burial. So he must have been very old. But then I think it was John who wrote the Gospel. He was supposed to be 102 when he died. So anyway, we could be here all night talking about that.
Yeah. That's great. That's nothing to do with Arthur. Nothing to do.
Yeah.
With Arthur.
Okay. Fine. Okay.
No, of course, he was probably a Roman Catholic.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just before we close, Charles, I'm just going to quickly whiz through the chat box to see if there's any questions in here. Here's the first one I've seen. Daniela Holland has asked, is there any mention of the first Arthur's mother name?
Who's the first Arthur?
Yeah. So I think she's referring to, is it Magnus's son?
I don't. He was not Arthur. He wasn't even older. He wasn't even old enough to do anything. It is only recorded Maximus Magnus. Mm-hmm. His only recorded son was Victor. He was a child.
Right. Okay.
So this is Wilson Blackett's strange story about a guy called Andrographus. He wasn't related. He wasn't in any way related whatsoever. And I seem to remember he got drowned or somewhere in the Adriatic Sea. No, Maxim wasn't British. He was a Spanish, possibly Celtic, but he was from Spain. He may have had other sons, but it's dubious. Recorded in his lifetime or just after his lifetime, there was one son. His wife is unknown.
Okay. But
she was a friend. Magnus Maximus was also a friend of Saint Martin in Tours, in France, and there's a story about Magnus. Oh,
that's my fault. Sorry.
Yeah. His wife serving at the table where Saint Martin came to visit the Emperor Magnus Maximus. I got that one the wrong way around. It's Magnus Maximus. It's Clemens Magnus Maximus. I believe he had a brother, and I believe the brother had a son who had a very similar name to Magnus Maximus. And went down a few generations before they petered out. But some say that the Welsh stories are that the stories that go with the Mabinogi. There is a story about the dream of Maxim Wledig, and his wife was known as Ellen.
Okay, brilliant.
But maybe that's just a piece of folklore.
Yeah. Okay. Question from Merlin's boy, and I think I might know your answer to this. What are your thoughts on the alleged link between Welsh royalty, such as Arthur, and the Holy Family?
Where the hell did you get that from?
I think is it? I don't know.
Where's that coming from? I probably know where it's coming from, but it's
there's a genealogy. I don't know if it's the Harleyan 3689, whatever it's called.
No, certainly not. No.
But it mentions Anna, who was apparently a cousin of the Virgin Mary, that's married into.
That's a good one, isn't it? It's a good one.
Yeah, all right, we'll move on. There's your answer, Billy. Sorry about that.
I can't answer that in a very, very short time. You've got to look at these genealogies and you wonder, whether these are genuine or whether they just making them up that they went along. Some of them certainly are genuine, while others are very, very problematic.
Okay, thank you. Daniela Holland, another question from Daniela. She says, what letter does the G mutate to?
It doesn't mutate, it disappears.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
If you find a G sometimes, that mutates from C, or ek, as we say in Wales.
Right.
There is no soft C in Welsh, by the way. There's no soft C. There's no ch. C is a k, and sometimes in the Middle Ages it was written as a K.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, what's the next one?
Melissa of the Mercurial Pathways has asked, which do you think more important to find, the myth or the man in Arthurian studies?
Both.
Great question.
Both.
Okay.
If you're doing Arthurian studies, you've got to cover all of it, not just the history, if there is any history. One of the questions which you forgot to mention that you asked about was Arthur based on mythology? I can't remember which one it was. You didn't say anything about it, but I got it listed. Some people. Why do some people say that Arthur started as a mythological figure and then became historical
Historicized.
by
That's
mistake?
right, yeah.
I believe it's the other way around. A real person called Arthur existed. He becomes something different. And this is the important thing about Arthur. And this was one of the first things that I was told by Professor Bedwyr Lewis Jones when I spent how many hours in his office in Bangor University, and then met him several times later. My best experience was at a meeting. There were all these guys with chains on, mares and things, and they would all go in to see Bedwyr Lewis Jones, and Bedwyr Lewis Jones just parted them and went to speak to me. How proud I was that day. You know? He remembered me, and he came across, Mayor, get out the way, get out the way. Marvelous character, but he said, we're never going to find Arthur. That's the first thing he told me. But then he added something like this. I could read it, but I won't. Who's Arthur? Not who is Arthur, but who's Arthur? There was possibly one Arthur. There were a couple of Arthur. Actually, there was a king of David who was called Arthur, but he doesn't seem to have developed into the folk story. There was a guy in Scotland called Arthur Mac Aidan, son Mac Gumberan, who got killed at a battle in 590 fighting the Picts. He wasn't a king. There was one King Arthur, the definite. He was a king of David. He was descended from an Irish dynasty who had settled in southwest Wales. But he doesn't seem to have done anything. He didn't seem to fight any Saxons or anything, if Arthur even fought Saxons. And that's the problem. You mentioned at the beginning, that if talking to me, you're going to get a slightly different idea about Arthur. But we haven't got into it in any detail.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted. And I did, and it's been absolutely fantastic listening to you, Charles.
I enjoyed it.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. So
if you want to start again, I'll go into my ideas of Arthur, which are slightly different. A lot of people won't agree with them. But I don't believe Arthur fought a battle. I believe he was a Welsh warrior, or a British warrior of Britain. He was used. So there's the who's. Who's Arthur? The Esoteric Arthur. The Annals Cambia's Arthur. Geoffrey of Monmouth's Arthur. S is belonging to. They were all based possibly on one person who lived in. I believe there's only one real reference to Arthur, and that's the Battle of Camlan. And I believe the date is probably correct, 537, give or take a year or two.
Okay.
He dies, but why does he die? He's not fighting Saxons. Did he fight Medrad? Maybe not. Maybe Medrad was fighting with him, not against him. And when you go to the triads, there's these strange stories about why Camlan took place. And they're nothing to do with fighting Saxons. And there's literally There's hardly anything. I mean, not literally nothing, but there are odd bits and pieces. The Welsh don't seem to think Arthur fought the Saxons.
Nennius mentions the 12 battles, but I don't think he mentions Camland, does he?
It doesn't mention Camland.
Yeah, no.
That's in the Annales Cambriae.
Where do you place Camland? Do you place it in Dinas Mawddwy?
No. I know Richard Johnson likes it, but there is no evidence that the name Camlan existed in that area before the 16th century. And it's a name that it's a name that anybody could use. Cam, it means crooked or something like that, or bent or something like that. And the problem is the next element, Camlan. In the Annales Cambriae, and I can show you the actual wording, CA, a little mark over the top for the Latin of the abbreviated M. Then the next word is LAN, and with an N over the top, lan, which is clan in modern Welsh. But Camlan can also be Camglan. Glan meaning the bank of a river. Glan, it's still used today in Welsh. By the time the word appears in the 16th century, mutation has already been in the Welsh language for a long time. So Camlan can mean Camglan or Camllan. The double L becomes an one L. The G disappears altogether, as was mentioned. So Camglan, the G is dropped. So they look the same. So the most popular one is Camboglana near the wall, Adrian's wall, which is correct. I mean, it's correct that it's Cambo is the Brythonic for became Cam, and Glana became Glan in later Welsh.
Okay.
But we don't know. But it says in the Annales Cambriae, Lan, Lan, and that Lan is also found in the book of Llandaf for the charters. They are clans, which is a religious holy place.
Yeah.
But it has other meanings. It can mean an enclosure of some kind. So Camlan can mean a bent enclosure, a crooked enclosure, or a crooked bank of a river, this kind of thing. Something like that.
Yeah.
So it could be anywhere. And if the English had taken over if the Anglo-Saxons had taken over most of England, where have all the Brythonic names gone? Where have they gone?
Yes.
So there could be a Camlan, I don't know, Derbyshire, Staffordshire, who knows? Anywhere. And one writer, Reginald Wright, he's dead now. He found a Camlan on a late medieval map in County Durham, right on the coast of County Durham. That could mean Arthur. It's not definite. Not definite. He wrote some very strange stuff, but he's famous for using his bus pass to travel all over Britain.
Famous for what, sorry?
He's famous for travelling all over Britain on his bus pass. His old age, I got one too. Old age pensioners bus pass. Yeah, character. He was a character. Over the years, I've met some really interesting people.
I bet you have, and I'd love to get you on again, and we can talk about that. Definitely, I've found this absolutely fascinating, and you've given me so many different things to think about and look into. So I really appreciate.
Just looking at the time, then we've been going for nearly 2 hours.
We normally do an hour, Charles. We're approaching 2 now. It's been great. So thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with me. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Come back anytime.
Thank you very much.
We'll go into it, some of the questions in a bit more detail.
Yes, okay.
It's an introduction. Let's call it an introduction.
Yes. All right, then. I'll change that.
Okay.
Lovely. And thank you, everyone who's watched. And thank you. I'm just going through everyone's comments now. It's been very lively, but I think the debate has remained polite, which is what I was hoping for. So thank you so much. I know it's a contentious subject, but everyone's behaved themselves tonight, which is brilliant. So thank you. And join me next week when I'll have a surprise guest for you, and it'll be episode 40 of the History CV of Britain. Thank you, Charles. Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn. Nos waith da.